listening to Part of the Problem on the Gas Digital Network.
This is what Norm Macdonald said. I apologize. Okay. He said, there are very few people who have gone through what they have, losing everything in a day. He's speaking about Roseanne and Louis C.K. Of course, people will go, what about the victims? But you know what? The victims didn't have to go through that. He also said, I'm reading from the article now, which is the Gothamist. He also said he was happy the Me Too movement has quote, slowed down a little bit.
Here, I got the direct quote in front of me. Can I read it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so first is, because what he said before that I thought was very insightful. He wrote, not necessarily, I'm happy that the Me Too moment has slowed down a little bit. It used to be 100 women can't be lying, and then it became one woman can't lie, and that became I believe all women. And then you're like, what? Like that Chris Hardwick guy, I really thought that got the blunt end of the stick there. And then here was the paragraph that got him in trouble. So they asked, what about women when someone admits to wrongdoing? So he goes, the model used to be admit wrongdoing, show complete contrition, and then we give you a second chance. Now it's admit wrongdoing and you're finished, and so that's the only way to survive is to deny. That's not healthy. That there is no forgiveness. I do think at some point it'll end up completely innocent person of prominence sticking a gun in his head and ending it. That's my guess. I know a couple of people that this has happened to. So that's still not the part that he got in trouble for, but I still think that this is all wise dialogue that was worth introducing to the Me Too conversation.
Yeah, like God forbid someone should take the opposite point of view. And the thing that's really crazy here, right, are the three. So there's three people that he has that he's brought up. It's Roseanne Barr, Louis C.K., and Chris Hardwick. Okay, now I don't know the exact details of the Hardwick situation. But from what I understand, it's one woman who was his ex-girlfriend who's made accusations against him of him basically being a jerk. Okay? And Norm is saying like, man, this is really a case of he said, she said. And this guy was just like ruined off of that. I think that's a little bit crazy. The Louis C.K. situation, obviously, we spoke about at length a couple shows ago. And, look, man, Louis asked some women if he could jerk off in front of them, and some of them agreed. Okay, I'm not saying it's not a little bit of a creepy thing to do, and that I don't think necessarily that, like, there's nothing wrong with what Louis did, but are we really talking about these victims as if it's like there's no nuance between if someone was, like, kidnapped and tortured for a month? How that's how we have to speak about these women who saw Louis' little freckly dick. That's how we have to talk about them. And in the Roseanne situation, there is straight up no victim. Sorry, Valerie Jarrett is not a victim because Roseanne sent her a tweet. I mean, think about it. Do you know the fucking tweets that have been sent at me? Or the things people have said about me on Twitter? It's like, I'm not a victim over that shit. Why would it be any different if it's a famous person who said it or just some idiot with an egg? Who cares? I don't know what to tell you. I've had some real fucking shitty things said to me on Twitter. You know what I do? I move on with my goddamn life. Certainly not living as a victim because it happened.
Yeah, when you group in Roseanne, the mindfuck of it that not only did she need to be fired for her job, but a friend of hers coming to her support and saying, hey, she's like really, really down. And I don't know if they realize just how down she is because of that incident. And that's like, how dare you say that? Like,
how dare you? And what Norm said in the quote is that the victims haven't gone through that. He is more specific about this in a video clip we're going to play later of him on The View. But, to me, it's like Roseanne made a joke. You may not like the joke. You may be offended by the joke. But, I've actually heard comedians argue. So I heard Michelle Wolf on her Netflix show, which she had one season of called The Break. And I believe it's been canceled. But there's something really ironic about that show in general, if you saw any of it.
Also, just that being the name of your show and having it be canceled is hilarious.
Well, the funny thing is that she named the show The Break, And then she was like, look, there's all this craziness going on. This is going to be where we just take a break from it. But if you actually listen to it, the show should have been called The Continuation. This is the weird thing about like the left-wing worldview, where they just can't see, they have no self-reflection or transcendence of their own worldview. And it's like, they're like, oh, let's just take a break from everything. But if you actually watch it, it is just a continuation. It's the exact same thing that late night comedians are doing. It's like the same exact, whatever, the same exact outwork.
In a higher pitched voice, Dave.
Yeah, much higher pitched. But she said at one point on her show, she said what Roseanne tweeted wasn't a joke. She said, you can't even consider it a joke. And I remember being kind of blown away by that and thinking like, oh, okay, are you claiming that wasn't a joke? So is your claim that Roseanne literally believed that Valerie Jarrett was born of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Planet of Apes? like that's literally what you think she was actually arguing in a serious sense. I think this is Valerie Jarrett's origin story, because one of those things is a huge group of Muslims and the other one is a movie. So I don't think Roseanne was actually arguing that these are the parents of Valerie Jarrett. You may not like the joke. That's absolutely fine. You can say the joke wasn't funny. That's absolutely fine. You can say the joke was offensive. Okay, but to just be able to say, I get to dictate that wasn't a joke. There's something about that, because then when you say that wasn't a joke, because look, obviously it's a joke. Obviously it was fucking a joke. Now you can think it's not funny, but if you want to go out and say that joke wasn't funny, then you're like, okay, Michelle Wolf, well, you're publicly calling out Roseanne for not being funny. Let's put her body of work up against this show, The Break, and we can see what we think is funnier. I'm not shitting on the show, but, I'll just leave it at that. You can argue over funny all day long, but you know what? There's always going to be people. Look, I'm a comedian. You're a comedian. All these people. There's always going to be people who don't find what you do funny, and then there's other people who find it fucking hilarious. So whatever. You can have your opinion on it being funny. You can also say the joke was offensive, but then you gotta take a little bit of a broader look at things and go. So this was when Michelle Wolf made this comment. It was on the same episode that she did a whole bit about, I believe it was Ireland legalizing abortion. And she had this whole bit on it, and then there was like a standing ovation from the crowd when she said, finally, Ireland's legalized abortion, and everyone's thrilled. And it really is, to me, it was like a great example of how insulated the left-wing comedians are in their own worldview, where it's like, look, by the way, I have no problem. Do your joke on abortion. Go to town. Just make a serious statement on abortion and have everyone cheer that it's legal. Fine. But you do realize if you're going to start policing other people for making offensive jokes, that is very offensive to a fairly large percentage of the population. Like, a whole lot of people see abortion as murdering babies. And you know what? They've kind of got a point. They've got a point. You can't look at abortion. It's not like if you have an abortion and you say, oh, I think that's murdering a baby. You're like, well, how could you possibly think that? It's like, well, okay, technically that is kind of what you're doing. So whatever, fine. You have the right to say that. I could completely understand somebody who says, like, I don't like offensive comedy. I don't make offensive jokes, and I don't want anyone else to make offensive jokes. If you were like some, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like if Brian Regan or someone like that, who's like a great comic but is just super clean, said, I don't like people making offensive jokes, I could get. But how fucking crazy and authoritarian do you have to be to say, I can make jokes that may offend the other side as much as possible, but if they make a joke that offends me, they should be ruined? That's a fucking crazy mentality to have. And that is the mentality, and that is what's going on here. Don't fucking make any mistake about it, because Norm Macdonald has for a long time, look, he is a Christian conservative. And he's always been somebody who kind of challenges the mainstream orthodoxies. And this is why he's the guy who they're going after like this. That's the truth. And look, man, Norm Macdonald is one of the funniest comics in the game, and maybe I'm being a little bit conspiratorial or paranoid when I say this, but if Norm Macdonald was not a Christian conservative, I think he would have had a much bigger career. Norm had, he had a sitcom that lasted a brief little period of time. Now he's got a Netflix show coming out, but for being as funny a motherfucker as that guy is, he's had, let's just say, not the career I think he would have had if he was a left-wing guy. That's my thought on it. And that's the fucking truth. And that's fine.
When you put it that way, I'm like, I really got to change my politics.
Yeah, maybe.
When you can be as funny as Norm and, have your politics get in the way of a great career, Jesus.
Well, look, he still had a great career.
Right.
It's just probably not what it could have been. Look, I have no doubt, and this isn't, believe me, when I say this, it's not a cry me a river type thing. I have a fucking great career. I love it. I want the career that I have. I don't want some other career. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that if I was a left-wing guy, a lot of doors would have opened for me that haven't opened for me.
For sure.
There's just no debate about it if you know this scene and you know the way things work. But I'm okay with that. I would rather just be where I am. I have a great career. I've got a great fan base. I get to do a lot of really cool things. And there's other people out there in the world who have like such shittier jobs that they have to do that it'd be ridiculous for me to spend any amount of time feeling bad for myself over this. It's fine. We all make the decisions we make, and that leads to where we go. I don't have a problem with it. But if we're talking about the situation, let's be fucking real. It's not as if there isn't a bias in this fucking industry. So Norm Macdonald has always been a guy who will call it like he sees it and make jokes that will, offend some people. That's always been his fucking thing. So he's got this new show on Netflix coming out. This gets a whole bunch of publicity that he said this thing. His Tonight Show appearance gets canceled over it. I thought Lewis tweeted this out, which, goddamn it, this is one of my favorite things I've ever seen Lewis tweet. I had a couple people, I retweeted this, and a couple people asked me if I was writing Lewis's Twitter now, because it just seems like something I would say. But this was all him, and it was fucking great. Lewis goes, here's a list of 10 violent criminals that Fallon Tonight did not cancel appearances on. Mike Tyson, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, R. Kelly, Chris Brown, 50 Cent, Hillary Clinton, Sean P. Diddy Combs, Mike Wahlberg, and Christian Slater. What a great fucking tweet, just to put things in perspective a little bit. So Mike Tyson, who's a convicted rapist, he can go out to these shows. Nobody's like really losing their shit. R. Kelly, who pissed on a child, he can do what he wants to fucking do. Let's take a look at some of these. Chris Brown, who put Rihanna in the hospital. He beat the shit out of his girlfriend so much. Like, is this not... Isn't there something to this that it's like, wow, that's really crazy. That's how offensive that's how offended the thought police are when you just challenge their premises. That you could be someone who actually beat the shit out of their girlfriend, but you can't just go, hey, you know what? I think Roseanne's getting harsh treatment here. She sent one tweet and her life gets ruined over that. So anyway, that's what ended up happening. They canceled him on Roseanne. They canceled him on the Tonight Show. He ended up going on Howard Stern instead.
And how shitty is that of the Tonight Show? I mean, it's like the SNL camp. I've seen Norm on that show a couple times doing great bits that they just instantly bail on a comic over something this stupid. They need to take a political stand. It's crazy.
God damn it, it really is. And it's like, you can't even, like I was saying before, like you can't say like, oh, okay, well then isn't this a great opportunity to have him on, push back against what he said. If you think he said something crazy and offensive, be like, hey, you said this, and I think this is crazy and offensive. How can you defend this? And then maybe we'll see if he can defend it. Maybe you'll see if he can't. But God damn it, the thing that just bothers me.
It bothers me. No defensive comedy from Fallon. Zero like Norm's as funny as they come. And even if he made, let's say he said something worse here, and we say dumb shit. Sometimes he can't just retract it and go, hey, I think you guys spun, like he's not a politician. I think you guys spun what I said the wrong way. You instantly go, hey, I can't have you on my show.
Yeah.
and you want to be an institution for comedy? That's like that's insane.
Imagine like Sean, and this is the thing, the reason like I love comedy, the reason I'm a comedian is that I just always loved how fucking comedians are fucking verbal gangsters. Like they say what they want to fucking say. And there's something great about like just searching for humor, just searching for funny with no other impediments in your way. And that, you know, like you're not worried about anything else except what's fucking hilarious, because making people laugh is to some degree an involuntary reaction. Like you kind of draw something out of someone that they can't even fucking hide. That's why people have they'll have these moments where they laugh at something and then go, ooh, you go, oh shit, that's fucked up. But you laugh first because it's just funny. And if you're open to that, it can just be pulled out of you. Like you can close yourself off to it, but if you leave yourself open, it can just be pulled out of you. Laughter is a very interesting, like human response that I think we don't completely understand. But there's something about it where what draws laughter out of people is in many ways pointing out absurdity within reality. So if you look at anything that's really funny, it almost always has an element of something real and an element of something ridiculous. If it was just ridiculous, then it's like gibberish and it's the ramblings of a psychotic person. If it's just real, then you're just a journalist reporting the news. But if there's an element of both, or you're pointing at something that's like hilarious, that's something that is real and absurd, this is where humor comes from. And then within that, there's like a certain way that you have to kind of put things in order to make it draw laughter out of somebody, in order to make it a joke. You know, like I'm sure you've had this situation before, Rob, where either you're running a joke by another comedian or a comedian's running a joke by you, and it may not be in the language of comedy yet. Like there's nothing that was said that would make you laugh, but you go, yeah, there's something there. There's something there. It's often an element of hypocrisy or absurdity or something like that. And you go like, oh yeah, play with that more. You got to find the words, but there's something funny about that. And the job of comedians in general is, if somebody's giving you marching orders, you kind of examine them and think about what's ridiculous about them. So if you live in this world where there's kind of like this worldview that everybody's supposed to have, just agreeing with it and going along with it is never going to be funny. And that's why comedy fucking sucks so much right now. That's why there's so many mainstream comics who aren't funny right now. Because just going along with what everybody's expecting of you, just saying something that's going to get applause, isn't funny. It's never going to be funny. But okay, just an example of what I'm saying, right? Like, here's something, this isn't a worked out joke. Like if you go watch my special, Libertas, you'll see like every joke that I'm putting in is phrased in a way where it's designed to draw laughs out of people. Now you may not like it, you may not think it's funny, whatever. I mean, you're wrong, it's hilarious. But you may not like it, but you can tell that it's in the language of comedy. This is said to draw laughs out of people. Now here's just like an idea that could be turned into a joke. That isn't funny on its own yet, but okay, so you have all of these women, left-wing like feminist types, who are outraged over the Kavanaugh hearings because they're saying that he might overturn Roe v. Wade, right? So their whole point is they're like there's all this stuff about my body, my choice, and they're like the state shouldn't be able to tell women what they can and can't do with their body, right? You're like, okay, when men turn 18, we have to sign up for the draft. There's something there. It's not put in the language of comedy yet. It's not written as a joke, but there's something that's hilarious about women because it's an absurdity. It's a hypocrisy. You're saying this and you're ignoring the fact that the rest of us men have to sign up for a draft where our entire lives and bodies can just be thrown into a war. But that's just not seen as important. But whether we regulate abortion or not is. That's an absurdity. That could be turned into comedy. But it's not in the language of a joke yet. Anyway, that's where comedy fucking comes from, man. It's like from finding absurdities and hypocrisies in the reality that we live in. And for some reason, if you do it right, within and you put it into the right structure, the reaction of other human beings is to go, ha ha ha. I do this for a living and I don't exactly understand that element of it at all. It's just something that's naturally in us that we're fucking born with. Like, you can make a silly face to a baby, and like a 2-month-old baby, you can stick your tongue out and the baby will start laughing because in some way they understand that you're being silly. It's just something that's baked into our genetics. I don't exactly get it, but it's something you get a feel for. Anyway, Norm Macdonald is one of the funniest and one of the most fearless fucking comedians ever.